Welcome to Spirit School. My name is Danielle Sarenk, also known as the Squamish Medium. I am the host of your Spirit School, where I will share all the lessons and learnings that I have uncovered through my intuitive development and mediumship development journey. I am a professional psychic and medium, an intuitive teacher and mentor, and I look forward to walking alongside you on this journey. Hello everyone and welcome back to Spirit School. We're talking all about self-worth and the spiritual development path tonight. I say tonight because I'm recording in my bedroom late at night here. But I was really inspired to talk about this today because not only is it something that I know I have gone through my intuitive and mediumship development journey, but now that I'm coaching a lot more and teaching a lot more, it is something that I see plaguing my students. And I do think it is part of that spiritual development path. And I do feel, the whole purpose behind my podcast is like authenticity and vulnerability. And this is a conversation that we need to normalize. Because there is not a single spiritual teacher out there, I kid you not, who has not come up against the self-worth and self-esteem on the spiritual path. You could look at the most polished and, popular Instagram spiritual teacher, and I guarantee you they are still likely experiencing self-worth issues here or there. So what I'm going to do at the beginning is just run you through a few things that I hear quite commonly that definitely have self-esteem issues at the root, okay? I am not a medium. I am not intuitive. I shouldn't be charging for this. I shouldn't charge this much for this. Did I just make this all up? I'm not as clear or as good as the person I'm developing alongside. Angels aren't going to talk to me. And those last ones, I really kind of want to expand on. So when you're in the intuitive and spiritual development journey, especially if you're doing a formal training, whether it's a group setting or one-on-one, you can sometimes fall into like this comparison trap. You can fall into this, I'm not ready to get out there right now because the person who studies alongside me is like way better than I am, way more advanced. Or you are a professional intuitive and you're considering raising your prices because you're starting to feel that energetic exchange needs to be increased because you're getting fatigued, you're getting burnt out. There's a ton of reasons why people raise their prices, and sometimes when these illnesses, mysterious illnesses come and this burnout and this lack of interest, it's time to kind of increase your prices and take it to that next level, especially for those people who really dedicate to the development path. I know how much you invest in yourself, and so sometimes you'll feel that calling as well. But when that happens, we tend to compare ourselves to other people in our industry, even though it's not a standard industry. It's not like massage or acupuncture where there's a governing body that says you can only charge X amount of dollars. You really have to work within this framework of what other kind of people are doing out there. When we're talking about coaching and tarot and energy work and mediumship, there is no industry standard. I feel like it's a really interesting time right now where, and it's funny because I thought about doing a whole podcast episode just on pricing yourself, but I'm not ready for that conversation in full yet. But just know that the self-worth and self-esteem really gets triggered when you start having those conversations with yourself. But don't fall into the comparison trap. Just stay in your own lane, meditate, check in with that solar plexus, check in with the heart. How do I feel about this? It's really important to get to the root of the self-esteem issue as well, which I'll talk about very shortly here. Now, one thing I really wanted to share too was something I used to always say, and it's a story I used to tell myself. And I had people tell me as a medium since I was 17 years old, but I'd lived such a, I will quote it as colorful life, that I used to always say angels would never talk to me. And even when I was 31 years old and I met my first mediumship mentor, and she said, you're a medium. And I said, no, angels are not going to talk to me. Trust me, I am not pure enough, which is a load of BS. I know that now. But that's a story I carried with myself from 17 and 31. So I basically deemed myself unworthy of divine connection because I made a lot of mistakes when I was a teenager and I wasn't always the kindest person. And that was all just part of my growth. But it was something around self-worth that kept me from believing I was actually able to connect with the divine and not only connect with them, but serve them. So there's also, self-worth issues if you're somebody who's really constantly having self-doubt dialogues, okay? Self-doubt. You want to go do something, but you manage to talk yourself out of it. Yes, that is the ego creeping up, but it is also self-doubt from past traumas creeping up as well. You're also struggling with self-worth issues if you have a hard time maintaining boundaries. Okay, you become a people pleaser early on in people's development when they're starting to get out there and do practice readings. This might come up in a way where you'll sit with somebody and you'll do a 20-minute reading in exchange for some feedback or a small donation, and you don't feel like you're doing very well, or the person who you're reading for is kind of, you're reading the energy a bit and they're like, oh, they're not pleased with this, or they're bored, and you become a people pleaser. You forget all the boundaries you've learned and you've set, and you end up going 40 minutes and then 50 minutes and an hour, and then you end up getting sick, and you don't leave that session feeling any better than you did at the 20-minute mark. So that's how this self-worth can kind of come up. And sometimes that self-worth can actually transform, that lack of self-worth, I should say, transforms into like people pleasing and just completely pushing your boundaries. So look out for that, okay? Another thing that you may say to yourself if you're really kind of hard on yourself, and especially around the self-worth, is, if people really knew the real me, they wouldn't like me. That's a really sad one, and I hear that one way too often. I've never actually said that one myself, but it's one that I hear, and it just breaks my heart because, I always think that I see people probably with kinder and more loving eyes than they see themselves, because I know how hard I have been on myself, and I know how hard especially women are on themselves. So definitely look at this if any of this list resonates with you, and you might be able to identify your own self-worth issues in different areas of your life. Be open to that. But do know that I do feel that the self-worth issues really stem from childhood traumas, okay? We do it as a way to protect ourselves from what we fear the most. So we will almost like continue this like negative dialogue, because then if somebody else speaks it to us, it can't hurt us as much. We protect ourselves by being harder on ourselves than we are letting other people be that hard on us, okay? So if you really want to get to the deep root of why you have self-worth issues, get really specific. Like, look at if it's money, if you have a hard time charging for your services, you need to look back at that origin money story. What experience did you have that triggered this I don't deserve this kind of money story? Okay, that's just a small example. But do know it is a survival mechanism for our souls, not souls, but like our human experience. It really is a survival tactic, and again trying to spare us perceived fear or hurt down the future. So we're just like, you know what, I'm just going to be hard on myself so that you can't hurt me. Well, look where that gets you. How does that serve you, right? You're like, I'm just going to be bummed out because I'm going to do it myself rather than risk somebody else doing it. Then we're not really even living an authentic life. We're just kind of playing it safe but making ourselves miserable along the way. So my biggest tip that I am going to give you around this is stop being so hard on yourself. This is a message I think everybody needs to hear. Stop being so hard on yourself. You need to start speaking kindly to yourself. So I'll tell you why it's so important to look at this area of your life, especially when you're on the spiritual journey. And let's face it, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you weren't attracted to that spiritual life. And don't we all want to attain peace? Like, what's more peaceful than loving ourselves, right? And getting over this self-worth stuff. But I tell you, there is great value in facing your self-worth issues and overcoming them. Like, I'm talking next level big stuff, so please do the work. So other reasons why it's important to develop your self-worth alongside with your intuitive and spiritual development journey, no light washing, no rubbing, like brushing it under the rug, is it helps you love yourself. It helps you create boundaries, like real, legit, I love myself, I hold myself in the highest regard boundaries. Me first, you second, air mask first, oxygen mask first, I should say. It helps you create a real authenticity and confidence, like not just faked confidence. Like people can tell when it's authentic confidence, okay? And it helps support you in finding your life's purpose. If you're having self-worth issues, the waters are going to be very muddy when you're looking for, and I'm putting in air quotes, life purpose, because people know how I feel about that if you're a regular listener. I truly believe our whole life purpose is to be happy and to experience joy and love and remember joy and love, as that's a state of which we come from and return to when we're done with this experience. So it helps you find your life's purpose, your joy, your happiness when you are able to step through life knowing your worth, standing fully within your power. And it also helps inspire yourself. It helps you inspire new ideas and innovations. And when you're inspired and you own it, and it's just your very essence, you help inspire those people around you. So I want to give you some tips. This could be a little bit of a short episode here, but I want to give you some tips on how to develop your self-worth, how to strengthen that muscle as you're going on your intuitive development journey. So most definitely 100% solar plexus work, right? That's where our self-worth, our self-value center is. That's where our intuitive gifts are kind of located, and that's where our power is when we talk about our power. So solar plexus work, there's a million things you can do. You can Google it. You can download my Claire sheet, and it has a ton of exercises on there. But some quick and easy things that I do is really like chanting through that energy center, the solar plexus that's right below the chest and in between the rib cage. I'll also just like sit with a cup of hot tea, and I'll literally envision yellow light. I'm breathing it in and I'm exhaling through that energy center. Or I'll even lay on my bed and put a little citrine crystal on top of my solar plexus, and I'll just breathe in and out that energy from that citrine crystal. You can also work on rewriting your beliefs. Much of our self-worth issues are related to stories that we continue to tell ourselves, which only hold like half-truths, right? There might be a little bit of truth in the story, but they're not full truth. Our human experience, our minds, our amygdala, our lizard brain creates this story that then creates this belief system that our bodies pick up. Our nervous system picks it up, our cellular memory picks it up because we've told it to ourselves so many times. And so we have the absolute power to rewrite our stories. And what we need to make sure that we do when we do this is that we need to repeat them. We need to read them. You don't just write it down once and the work is done. You've told yourself that you don't like yourself for years. So now you need to spend years telling yourself how much you like yourself and how much you value yourself. Okay, it's not an overnight thing. You also need to start looking at replacing people pleasing with self-care. Anytime you feel the slightest inkling to provide something for someone else, whether it's your children, your spouse, a client, anything, I want you to rather turn around and do something for yourself instead. Even if it's as simple as creating a hot cup of coffee or sitting on the edge of your bed and just taking some slow and intentional breaths. I want you to get in the habit of checking in with yourself every time you feel like doing something for someone else, just saying, hey, what do I need in this moment? And then I really want you to call back your power. Okay, calling back your power. There's some beautiful meditations on YouTube that are free that can guide you through calling back your power. But I literally, what I've done in the past, and actually what Spirit's showing me right now, is like I picture myself on like the coast of Ireland, this beautiful lush with these wild waves around me. And I literally am like yelling at the top of my lungs in this visualization. I have misplaced my power and I call her back now. And I say it with such conviction that I vision my power, the energy. You can visualize it as a color or as like musical note. And it's literally coming back into my spirit, into my soul, which I believe resides in our heart and our solar plexus. So call back your power. And last but not least, work with a coach or mentor. This is one of my biggest passions, is helping people along the spiritual development journey. And when you work with me for intuitive development, you're not only getting, tips and tricks on how to blend with spirit and how to relay a message in a cohesive and meaningful way. But you're also working with a coach or mentor like me to kind of work through some of the self-worth issues, work through the insecurities that arise as you're on the path of your purpose and you're feeling this alignment, but you're like, why isn't it all coming together for me? This is when you really want to work with a mentor or a coach. And this is how I have found value over the years in working with my teachers and coaches. So really consider putting like that investment into yourself. I really hope you will consider it, whether it's me or whether it's anyone else. That's why we have this kind of profession now. And I don't think it's by accident that spirit aligns this all of a sudden huge awakening and interest in spiritual development and intuitive readings and psychic readings and mediumship readings. And then they don't also create all these teachers along the way who have had kind of like rough and colorful experiences that they can call upon to support you on your journey. So I will leave you with this. 10,000%. You will not find self-worth in a book. You will not find self-worth in a podcast. You will not find self-worth in a poem. And you will not find self-worth in an external source like a compliment or a man telling you how worthy you are or anything else. This is purely an inside job. You need to do the work. You need to go inside. You need to face these fears. That's the only way you're going to be able to move that energy and try to obtain some of the peace that is promised to us when we hop onto the spiritual and mediumship development path. So trust me, is an inside job. I feel if you are somebody who's constantly looking for this in external sources, you just need to stop right now. Don't get another reading. Don't hire somebody else. Don't pick up another book. Sit on your mat, take some breaths, allow the inspiration to come through your heart. I promise you, you will get so many answers on that mat. And I'm sorry if I'm so forceful on this episode. I'm just so passionate about this topic, and I've had enough. I'm like, as women in particular, like we are ready to rise. We are ready to stand up. We are ready to move past this and fully embody our power. So I hope that this little episode has inspired you at least a little bit. Sorry, there's a little bit of sound issues along the way. I'm working on a little bit of a new system right now. And I am posting this on November 20th, late at night, because that's how I roll here at the Serenk household sometimes when kids don't want to sleep. But up until December 1st, you can go onto my website and book a reading with me, a mentorship session, or a coaching session at my 2019 rate. As of December 1st, those will be increasing slightly as I've been doing a lot of work. And I will do a whole episode on pricing spiritual services at a later date. And so I won't go too much into it now, but it's a really exciting time for me in my business and in my practice. And I am just so honored and I'm so thrilled that there have been over 50 women who have chosen me as their teacher and mentor this year. And that's really where my heart is. So there are also some packages on my website now that I will be offering come February 2020, but you can start booking in now if you like. And these are 4 sessions and 6 sessions when it comes to mediumship mentorship or intuitive development mentorship or just coaching. So the perfect coaching client for me is somebody who doesn't necessarily need to hear from their loved ones, doesn't really have an interest in being told about the potentials of their future, doesn't really have an interest in becoming a spiritual service provider, but they really just want to sit with somebody who can offer them some insight and some spiritual insight to some things that they're experiencing through their life. This might be marriage, this might be relationships, this might be career or home or children. This was actually something that I started to offer based off of a request from some clients who have done the reading. They don't really want to develop their intuition, but they just kind of want to sit with me and have me work with them and have them work through them identifying their own power and their own whispers of their own soul and be self-empowered, right? So I do have some of these packages available, and if you book in the next few days, you get a little bit of a discount, and if not, there's no FOMO because there's always next year. So yeah, all very exciting times here. So thanks for hearing me out. Thanks for listening to another episode. I'll see you all on Instagram at Squamish Medium, and have a good night.